Going live.
All right. We're ready.
All right. Seeing that technology is ready and we have what looks like a crowd here, I will go ahead and call this regular business meeting to order, April 12th, 2021 at 6:01 p.m. First order of business is a roll call.
Live.
All right. We're ready.
All right. Seeing that technology is ready and we have what looks like a crowd here. Getting an echo from somebody.
I think we fixed it.
All righty, thank you. So roll call. Ricardo?
Here.
Crystal? She may be joining us late. Heidi?
Here.
Jason?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Christy?
Here.
And chairs here are going to call for Crystal. Let me know if she joins us. We certainly have a quorum, so let's move along to our Pledge of Allegiance and flag salute. If you guys would all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Linda, you want to share the screen and then we'll put Johnny on after Glenn starts.
So I have approval of the agenda to follow up with first. That would be item 3 on, or section 3 on item 1. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll move to, this is Heidi. I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thanks, Heidi. To hear a second?
Christy seconds.
Thanks, Christy. Any discussion on the matter?
Did
Hearing
the
none.
policy thingy get removed? I
Yes.
didn't see. Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
it did.
No more, no questions.
It's not on this latest draft that I'm looking at here. So what you're looking at live time should be right. So thanks for the clarification. So again, we'll go ahead moving with the vote.
I have a, can
Go
I
ahead.
ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
So we have no policies on this agenda that I'm looking at, correct?
That is my understanding. That is correct. That is the latest
Okay.
one that I have. So, yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote on the motion. Ricardo?
Aye.
Crystal? Heidi?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Chair votes for. Our agenda is approved as presented to us. Moving along, we didn't have any public comments that were submitted prior to the deadline at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So I will not have public comments to read at this particular juncture. Moving on to item number 2, board communication. I will go ahead and turn it over and like to introduce Johnny Farrow from Willamette Career Academy.
Board Chair, I'd like to give a little background history for people that are unfamiliar with the Willamette Career Academy and how we got here.
Sure.
Okay. Several years ago, 2 years ago, as a matter of fact, we brought to the board's attention the need to expand career technical education programs, that we had students expressing interest in programs other than the ones that were available to us. So we started exploring through the Willamette ESD opportunities between school districts to offer things that each other was not providing. Starting career technical education programs at the high school is very expensive, especially when there's equipment involved. It turns out that none of us had enough interest from students to create our own program, so we decided to try and integrate something. At the same time, Salem-Keizer School District said they would be willing to support structurally a program located in their school district if it was a private-public partnership. And through that exploration, this model program was developed by doing a lot of research. I'm going to let Johnny share the details, but actually this is a grand opportunity for students to engage in programs that we currently do not offer in our school. So Johnny, would you like to talk about Willamette Career Academy, please?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. I just wanted to start off by thanking the board of directors and members of the audience for some time this evening to share about this exciting project. We can start on that Project Origin page right there. As Ginger alluded to, the Willamette Career Academy really was born by a variety of stakeholders in the education system around the Willamette Education Service District saying we need more career tech opportunities for students. We have some and they are outstanding, but we're not hitting all of the career development areas that our industry partners are telling us we need. As superintendent also explained, is that it's really expensive to start new career and technical education programs, particularly ones that we have set out to open at our regional location. So due to the really incredible forethought of Mountain West Investment Corporation, the Willamette ESD Board, and all of our partner school districts, the Willamette Career Academy is starting to come to fruition. Our plan is to open to 11 different school districts starting in September of 2021. Where we will offer 3 unique programs this year in diesel technology, cosmetology, and health services. In year 2022, we will add construction, manufacturing, and IT. Our real mission here is to break down barriers for students and to ensure that all students in the Willamette ESD region schools have access to high quality career and technical education. And our vision is simply to prepare students to obtain high skill and high wage career options, regardless of what route they take to get there. We know learners don't all go on to four-year universities, and not all of them need to. Certainly some careers require a degree, but all careers typically require some level of skill acquisition and training. And that's where we hope to bridge that gap for students. So we will connect education, industry, and community through classroom and work-based experiences, hopefully so those students go back and reinvest in their local communities, and all of us see a real clear return on investment. As far as credits go, students will attend part-time at the Willamette Career Academy, which is located on Lancaster Street in Salem in the old Toys R Us building, if any of you remember that. Students will bus in from all of their prospective school districts and will attend on a 3-hour block. So students will either come in the morning for a session or in the afternoon for a session where they can access all their program of choice in the classroom and lab setting, as well as work-based learning experiences. It's important, I think, for communities to understand that the Willamette Career Academy is a program and to think of us as an extension of your school staff. North Marion high school students are still North Marion high school students, even if they're accessing the Willamette Career Academy for CTE programs. They're still working towards a diploma at your school, still able to participate in your clubs, activities, and athletic teams. This is just another option for your students to gain skills. All of the accreditation is maintained at North Marion. We're simply providing the programs, the infrastructure, and the connection to post-secondary training, whether that be through industry certifications or college articulations or work-based learning opportunities. So as I mentioned, the 3 programs that we're currently recruiting for right now, one of those programs is cosmetology. All three of our programs that we're starting with were based on industry research that the ESD engaged in, where they identified what are job markets that students are going into with student interest and high wage, high demand career opportunities. And so cosmetology, people don't always realize how much money is to be earned in that field, especially if you consider it through an entrepreneurial lens and owning your own business and those applications. There are actually no public community colleges left after this year in the state of Oregon to work towards cosmetology licensure. And so those have all gone to private schools. Our students who complete the cosmetology program after 2 years will have earned enough hours to sit for licensure in one of the 4 areas that we'll focus on. So by the time they graduate from North Marion High School, they could leave a fully licensed nail technician, hair designer, barber, or esthetician. So there's not enough hours to get all 4 of those, but students will specialize and work on that. I'm not going to go over all the possible credits because I know you guys are on a tight schedule tonight, but I wanted to include the example topics and possible transcription processes that schools might use to evaluate their transcript for students for you to take a look at. As you can see, we're going to connect college articulation and credits where appropriate, and then also just continually trying to ensure that students are working towards certification or licensure when it exists. Diesel technology is a really exciting program where students will be learning the ins and outs of on-road, so semi-trucks and transportation logistics, as well as off-road equipment like agricultural applications and tractors and heavy equipment for road work and construction. We live in the heart of agriculture in Marion County, and we would be remiss not to make sure we included diesel technology that focuses on that industry. And so we're excited to have partners from industry that are helping us ensure that students really understand engine fundamentals and electrical systems of both applications. And we've worked out a partnership with Chemeketa where students will earn 12 college credit hours towards their associate's degree in diesel technology. They will earn preference points into that program and have the opportunity to participate in internships. Diesel technician is I will just say simply a very expensive and large footprint of a program. And so is cosmetology for that matter. We've built a full-on cosmetology salon for students to work in. And so there's just no way a smaller, more rural school could open up a diesel program to this level on their own. So we're happy to have leveraged all of these partnerships to bring this opportunity. And I think it is safe to say every person in the diesel industry I've talked to has said, I need technicians now. And we really hope to be their one-stop shop for hiring. They have outstanding benefits for students who get hired in terms of paying for their entire associate's degree, as well as signing bonuses. So lots of opportunity there. And then the final program we're currently recruiting for is health services. Boy, if a pandemic doesn't show you how much we need more healthcare professionals, I don't know what does. But our partners have told us we need entry-level participants coming into the health services field. We've really created a very robust health services program that will make a very competitive application for any student going on to a 4-year university pursuing nursing, pre-med, hospital administration, physical therapy, any number of that literally hundreds of positions that you can get within the healthcare industry. And then our capstone project will be the basic nursing assisting training course where students who successfully complete that course including the 75 hours of clinical rotations in a long-term care facility, will be qualified to sit for their certified nursing assisting license. So really excited about the way that's shaped up. We've built basically a mini hospital wing in the middle of our school facility where students can practice all of those skills in a mock situation before we turn them loose on live patients, and really start honing in their skills and their scope of practice. I already talked a little bit about how students will come in a half-day rotation, either an AM or a PM, and we will work with our partner school districts and your staff. I've already met with the counselors from North Marion and administration and CTE teachers to talk about, how will we schedule strategically so that a student can still access the classes they need to be on track to graduate, but also how they can still participate in your school community. We want to make sure they're back for athletics and band practice and FFA meetings. That's an important part of your school culture that we want to make sure that we're also being cognizant of and taking care of the whole student. And so there's some unique factors that we're looking through in terms of how to support kids, but you have an outstanding staff that's been very receptive to engaging in those conversations. And I doubt my tour is going to play from this, but I sent off in the original PowerPoint a video that just shows what the school's looking like. And so hopefully you guys get a chance to take a look at that, and you have to use your imagination a little because we're still waiting on some of the equipment, but we've taken what was originally a big empty warehouse, the remnants of a toy store, and we've turned it into a beautiful learning environment for students. It looks like a school to a certain extent, but more like a technical skill center, which is what it is. So these incredible lab spaces where students will engage not only with the public and industry partners, with each other, and then industry professionals that come in to teach these courses. We're actively recruiting instructors right now that are directly from industry. We want nurses to teach our healthcare and health services program. We want diesel technicians teaching our diesel program, and likewise with cosmetologists. And so I just can't wait to meet our North Marion students that are going to represent your school district. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Students who are interested can apply right there on the website. And I want to talk about the application process just briefly, in that it's not an application that's going to ask them what their GPA is and what classes they've taken. It's an application that assesses fit, because our ultimate goal at the end of the day is to help all students find access to the right program for the right reasons. And that means they see the light at the end of the tunnel. When students know why they're learning something and why they need to know the math and what it is that it's going to relate to their future, they will move mountains to get there. And GPA isn't always an indicator of that success. And so our goal is to break down any barrier that's going to prevent a student who really wants these programs, and this is their shtick. This is what they're going to do for the rest of their life, and we're going to help them get there and earn a high school diploma while they're at it. What questions can I answer?
Hi, Johnny, this is Bill Krupp. Can you just give us a little background on yourself and how you got to be principal of this new opportunity for all of our students?
Absolutely. This is what I can best describe as a dream come true. I was a CTE teacher. I started as an ag teacher and FFA advisor many years ago. So I've seen the power of career and technical education, not only as a teacher myself who engages students in student leadership organizations and in technical training in the classroom, but also from a career advisor when I was leading the advisory group and career education curriculum at Silverton High School, and then to an administrator. And so it really feels like my career has come full circle and an opportunity to lead a school that is focused on career and technical education, because I know it works. I've seen it actually I experienced as a student myself. all the way back in high school. And then I've just seen it work time and time again, that we can have that kid that school doesn't feel like it's made for them until they find their spot, right? And we can think about school differently and make sure that students have access to all those why questions that we know they need in order to engage in that process. And so I started my teaching career in Mount Angel as an ag teacher, like I mentioned, and then the rest of my teaching career was at Silverton High School. So I'm familiar with the region. I spent a lot of time with North Marion FFA students over the years, and you guys have outstanding programs there that we hope to support as well.
I see a hand raised from Crystal. Go ahead, Crystal.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for having healthcare and diesel technology. I actively know multiple people who are seeking people to work for them. But second of all, so thank you for this awesome presentation. What's security look like in that part of Salem on the school campus?
Yeah, that's a good question. My first administrative job was actually at McKay. And so I'm thankful that I've worked on Lancaster before in that area. We are in the process of figuring out what we're going to do for building security. Right now, we intend that there will be a certain portion of security allotted to each program. And then just working closely with the other schools in the area and the law enforcement providers as well. I don't anticipate that there will be any problems short of what just happens in Salem on the day-to-day, and we'll work closely with school safety specialists that, you know, when they tell us it's time to shut the doors, we shut the doors and follow those procedures.
Okay, can you also remind me, and I may have missed this in your first few minutes, are we in charge of making sure the children get there safely, or are you guys in charge of that?
That's a great, nope, that's a great question. So each school district is responsible for transportation. We are in the process, probably this week actually, your district will receive a form where they can opt in to either let students drive themselves or you'll be providing the exclusive transportation for students. So we understand that's going to look different. We have districts coming and students coming as far away as Newburgh and Falls City and as close as Silverton and Mount Angel. And so we know each district's transportation requirements might look a little bit different, and each student's too. You know, if they have a job in Salem and it doesn't make sense for them to ride a bus back to an hour and then turn around and drive themselves back to work, some of those types of situations. So each district will have the final say in transportation as far as how kids get there, and will provide that. Each district also owns the final say in who comes. So your school district essentially owns a portion of the Willamette Career Academy, and as such, we have an application that's going to help sort out the right student, right, and student fit. But at the end of the day, it's going to be your high school and district staff that say who are the students that are going to represent North Marion there. We want school districts to have the ultimate flexibility in what works best for them and their families.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ricardo, you had your hand raised. Did you still have a question?
I did, but I took it down. But my question was that this is only for current students, right? They're enrolled in high school.
Yes, it is only for career technical education. They don't necessarily have to be enrolled in high school, but again, that's your district determination. You could invite your homeschool families, or there may even be some opportunities for students who are working towards a GED. This might be a really great option for our students, maybe in our migrant education programs that move to us without the opportunity to finish a high school diploma, but still obviously need technical training and language acquisition skills. And so again, trying to think differently about how we do school and how we provide training for all students is really at the heart of what the Willamette Career Academy is. And so there's students need to be a junior or senior age-wise in terms of being able to participate. But again, each district is going to have the final say in what students they invite over. And so we hope that we get a student population that's representative of your student population. So when you look at things in terms of socioeconomic, GPAs, languages spoken, special education, that we see a micro version of what we see at North Marion High School.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. Excellent presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank you, Ginger, for being such an active participant as we start this, and your passion. I can tell that you're very dedicated to advocating for your students in your community, and I just value your expertise and insight so much. So if any of you have any questions for me later that might pop into your head, please don't hesitate to reach out. Please share information with students that you think would be interested, and we just look forward to working with you for many years.
Thanks, Johnny. Much appreciated for your presentation. Really do. So
Thank you.
take care.
Good luck with the spring on this crazy year.
Okay, moving along on our agenda. On number 2, section B, OD state education update, no SB updates. I'm not going to go through those, but please see the links attached and make sure that you're following through on those things. Item C, April is Celebrate Diversity Month. Obviously, we as a district have much distance to go, and in that spirit, I would encourage you to, and we as a district are actively working to be able to celebrate that diversity in the best positive way for all of our students. So, last item on section 2 is the OSB Virtual Summer Board Conference. Registration is underway. It's in July 2021. If you're interested in registering, please get a hold of Diane, as this is really a good way to gain some valuable information and just best practices. It's really good on that. I'm not sure what we're up for in terms of the virtual nature. Bill, you may know more how that's going to work this year, but either way, I think I've always come away with some really good information out of the conferences. So, moving along to section 3, consent agenda. Hopefully, you guys have all had a chance to look over our consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion to move forward with that, if you're so ready.
This bill, I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Sister Ricardo, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Ricardo?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Thank you. Heidi?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Chair votes for. That is approved as presented. Motion carries. Moving along to section 4, which is our business bond and budget appropriations section. Linda, are you ready to give us a report?
Yes, I am. I just wanted to mention, first of all, last month I presented about a pooling for the PERS UIL unfunded liability. They have put that off. Interest rates are changing quite rapidly, and they want to do a little more research before they recommend these coming to our boards for resolution. So if there is a resolution, it will be in the May meeting, and that's the timeline they've set now. So unless something changes, I may or may not bring that depending on what the experts are advising us at that time. I have put up on the screen my summary for my general fund and expense spreadsheet. And I did want to point out for April, we have received our reconciliation amounts that will come in May for our high cost disability. We had a reduction from last year, an addition for this year. And then the pre-final payment for 1920 for state school fund is 32,000, but I had budgeted 75 with all three of those things. So I'm a little bit lower than what I had expected. With COVID and all, my ending fund balance is still trending up, which is good because we'll need it for our budgeting in 21, 22. Any questions for me?
I don't see any hands raised. Anybody have any questions?
Bill's hand just went up.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Bill.
This isn't a question, just wanted to announce that the Joint Ways and Means Committee, which is working on the final budget for the state school fund, which is lower than current service level at this time, is making an online roadshow. They're coming by. It's a virtual roadshow, but the one for our district, which is the District 5, basically Schrader's district. And it's at the end of the month on a Saturday. So if people want to testify or show up and look at the state school fund, you have to sign up, but it's on the Ways and Means Committee website. I don't have it handy. Let me know if you have questions. I'll be there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Linda. Much appreciated. Moving on to section 5, board action items. Our first item up is approval of superintendent contract renewal. Bill, did you have?
Glenn, do you want me to speak to this since I
Yeah, go. I was
you?
gonna say, go ahead, Bill. I'll let you give just a little bit of brief or background on it.
So this year again, I became the typer, basically the typer for this, just to present to the board. So this is just showing you what I was requested to do. Superintendent had requested that in lieu of a pay raise, we do some tuition reimbursement for the completion of a PhD. I typed up a paragraph in this contract to propose to the board. It's at the end of the benefits section called tuition reimbursement. The rest of the contract changes were all just typos and some punctuation that occurred to be cleaned up. And the dates were changed to be the 2021 July to June 2024, which is a 3-year contract. The dollar amounts and everything stay the same. So the only thing you're looking at that's new here besides that's in there is the additional benefit, proposing tuition reimbursement and capping it to approximately, I priced out 50% of a program cost at PSU. So that is the presentation of request from superintendent to the board.
Thanks, Bill. On that, I would entertain a motion.
Jason will motion that for approval.
A motion, do I hear a second?
And this is Ricardo, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Thanks, Ricardo. Is there any discussion?
I have a question, just clarification on the tuition reimbursement.
Sure, go ahead, Heidi.
So that's for 15,000 in a school budget year, and then 22,000 in her during the course of her tenure, whether that if it's over a few more years or whatever total. Correct?
The way I intended on wording it is that's the individual cap for any individual in that job position. So total cap for that individual is capped, and in any 1 year, that is the cap. Did I answer your question? That's the way I
Yeah.
meant it, right? If I worded it wrong, I'm glad to.
No, that clarifies it. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. I have another question from Crystal.
Yeah, I had a question on that reimbursement for tuition as well. I know this would be changing it, but just given the position, having that one lump sum, I would like to see that over the 3-year period instead of a one lump sum. So like the first year, get a third of it, the second year, get a third of it, and the third year, get a third of it. I don't know how everybody else feels, but that's how it's typically done in the corporate world. It's not a lump sum.
So the program is 2 years if done at pace. Just because it's a 3-year contract doesn't mean it's a 3-year PhD program. It's a 2-year PhD program. So I split it up to approximately what you would do. What would be the cost is about $15,000 in the first year is the cost, and then you pay the balance of the 44,000 in the second, and then also whatever. So after your second year, then you're in your academic
Bill,
what do you call
Bill,
it year?
I'm actually not worried about that. I'm more worried about the school budget. I want it to be balanced in the budget. So if we can do it on even a 2-year, because whatever somebody chooses to use their PhD money on, if they're doing their PhD, then they will accommodate that. What I'm worried about is having one lump sum out of the school budget 1 year and not the next year. That's what I would like to see.
Christy, I also see your hand raised. Do you have a point to make?
Yeah, I can understand Crystal's position. To have some predictability in the budget would be great. But I think we also have to think about that not all classes are offered in every year. And so it may be maybe a program where the balance of coursework is not equal between years or semesters, and having flexibility for that would be really nice. So I guess, I don't know, what kind of budget flexibility do we need to have? I would hate to tie hands when we don't need to. I guess I'm saying I'd be in more favor of more flexibility on when the money is spent if it doesn't impact the budget.
So far we still have a motion and a second on the table. I haven't really heard an amendment to that motion.
Oh, Glenn,
go
this
ahead.
is Heidi.
We're still
Is that
discussing that
something-
original motion.
Sorry, is that something maybe Linda could speak to as far? Really, I think budgeting wise, she can make the. She knows if we know that that's built into the superintendent's contract, I think that you can budget around that. Then that's what my understanding is.
I think you're right, Heidi. I'm building the budget right now, and I would build that into it if that is what is voted on tonight.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks for taking that on the fly too.
So I put this there and I budgeted it out based on the academic requirements, and I chose PSU. That's my alma mater, so it was easy because I knew where to get all the information. Flexibility, I think, is there. I don't think it's that much in the way of totals, and what we're going up and down on here, and it will be predicted. It's also reimbursed, which means that the superintendent has already spent the money and it's just being reimbursed back. It's not like it's a bonus salary or anything like that. It's compensation to encourage people who want to take this position in the future to see a benefit there in lieu of salary. So that's kind of the way I thought about it anyways.
Is there more discussion on the original motion?
So this just keeps it comparable without a raise. Is that what I'm hearing? There was no raise, it was tuition instead?
Correct.
Okay.
Hearing no more discussion on the original motion, I guess I'll call the question. Since I didn't hear an amendment in there. So this will be as presented to us, Bill, as you presented to us in terms of the contract renewal. So I'll call the question. Ricardo?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Chair votes for, motion carries, and we have the contract renewal. Moving along, Bill and Julie, you guys have a bond oversight committee report. So I will turn it over to you guys.
Oops. Sorry, yep, perfect. Thanks, Linda. Julie was our chair. Of course, all of you remember Julie from being a long time board member, and she chaired the oversight committee, and Julie will start the presentation, and I'll take over when she runs out of gas. Or you're on mute, Julie. Still on mute. There you go.
Now?
Perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not a techie. That's why Bill's my backup, or pretty much will run the show. So, as we all know. Anyway, this is, I'm not going to read every slide for you guys. These are the members of the board. The community members were Adrian Kaufman and Jolynn Ash and Mike Williams, and then Jason and Bill were available to us. And, Linda and Kieran. So this was from the policy, what you guys, the board, developed as a policy to what our goals were supposed to be for the oversight, which mainly was just to oversee the budget and where the money was going. We didn't really have any decision-making parts to that, and trying to just be available for any district questions and try to help facilitate communication to the district. But so that was kind of the basis of our whole thing. And then this is the voters, what was in the voters pamphlet, the actual explanation and question of what we were going for, and the summary and explanatory statements to back up what the actual project was going to be. Because we were supposed to, you stay true to the actual projects as to how the community voted for. And this was the actual question coming straight off that pamphlet that was on the ballot. And then we just kind of categorized the project into these different categories so we could kind of track things a little easier. And this is kind of the basic timeline. The committee actually got started in February of 2019. So we weren't there from the very beginning, but actually a few of us were on the original planning committee as well as the campaign committee. So it was nice that we had some consistency all the way through the whole project. But this is the basic timeline for everything. and just the highlights of where the monies came from, because some did come from seismic grants and extra bond yield. And I don't know, Bill, you're better from here on if you want. You know the numbers better than I do. If you have anything else.
Sure, I'll take over.
Okay.
I'll take over. So basically what we did here for the final report was just summarize all the resources and spends, and then we'll break them down in a little bit in the next slide. This is just the highlight summary on this slide. So we got 42.2 million from the thing. If you can scroll back up, thing, just a summary of it. And so with all the OSIM grants and the bond yield and other things that we got, which we'll explain in a moment, we had 56.4 million of total dollars to spend. And with administration costs and total construction costs, we spent 56.2, leaving us 0.23 million in an ending fund balance for reserves. Now, if we summarize the resources here on this page, you can see more exact numbers off the site. And we had bond interest, energy trust, Measure 98 grant, some SB 1149 dollars, bringing in that. And then we got 2 seismic grants that we got for each of the middle school gym and the high school gym. That's where the breakdown of the revenue was to get to 56 mil. And then on the budget side, summarizing this out, and I want to point out a little note here that from the original budget column to the final forecast budget, there was an adjustment because during the project, we moved the high school parking lot out of the bid for the site work and into the high school work. So there was a change for that noted at the bottom of this slide. But if you look at what we forecasted in January 29, we spent 4.9 for the administration and the control of the project, the primary school, 2.5, middle school 7.5, high school with seismic upgrade 34, 1.5 to the Johnson property, 1.8 to the site, and 3.7 including the seismic grant going to the middle school was 7.5, and then 3.7 to the intermediate school. So with all those adjustments there in delta adjustments, that's where we had the remaining balance of 0.41% of $229,548. So that's the budget summary. If we look at categories, now these are the 7 categories that Julie presented up front that were right off the bond measure. So all I did here was I cut and pasted that exact same wording, and I just numbered them from 1 to 7 for the upcoming slides. So these were the 7 categories that the voters voted on for what we could spend the bond money on. So now we'll go through each of the buildings and the site. So the numbers you see after each list is what category from the previous slide these things fell into, so that each project, each thing that we did and a large pattern fell into one of those categories. So for the site, we had the parking lot, the track resurfacing, the repaving of the main lots, a well, traffic flow pattern change, street lighting, water detention area, and the Johnson Wilson property clearing. The middle school had new entrance, new and remodeled bathrooms, expanded teacher room, bus drop off, HVAC, roof and paint, remodeled the office area, gym seismic, and security technology. And that upgraded security technology actually went into every building, so you'll see it repeated multiple times. In the primary school, intermediate school, again, both had new entrances, remodeled bathrooms, bus drop-off areas, primary school new paint, remodeled office area, and both had new playgrounds. Behind, put in the back, and new roof on the primary school was repaid, as was in the bond measure. We repaved that roof, or we redid the roof prior to the bond, but part of the bond was to pay off that loan. And again, all buildings will have updated security technology. Continuing on, Linda. And then, of course, the high school gets its own page since it was dominant in the project money. New 2-story high school wing, remodeled CTE building, remodeled music and sped wings, new entrance front office building, remodeled basement, new parking lots, full coverage student walkways, remodeled gym, seismic upgrade, new education technology in all the rooms, new furniture, security access, all card locks, and a solar array system on the roof. So looking at it in the reverse direction, we look at all 7 categories that were in the bond, and then do we address each of those categories? And in all 7 categories, the committee decided that all 7 categories were addressed that were in the bond voting measure. Continue, please. One more slide. All right, construction challenges that were observed by the Oversight Committee was, of course, the COVID-19 work at shorter delayed deliveries, other such things. There was a corporate cat tax came engaged right in the middle of our construction, which amounted to about $140,000 of extra spend. Excavation of the Johnson property and high school was more intense than was originally thought. We found more asbestos than was originally found when we did the planning and the original research. So that cost a lot to remove that well issue. There was crack beams in the locker room down below that needed to be replaced. Gym 1 wall leaks were when we stripped off that outside. There was lots of trouble and that wall had to be redone. Dry rot at the middle school and the high school. The forest fires, of course, caused delays in the project. Cost containment at the high school due to the amount of the bids and what we projected on. PG electrical codes cost some extra money to bring all the new stuff up to code. It required the old buildings to be brought up to code, and we had to replace a greenhouse. So we'd like to thank, from the Oversight Committee, of course, the North Marion community for approving the bond and paying for the upgrades. We think the upgrades are awesome. Everything turned out really well and on budget. North Marion School Board, of course, for doing the work of coordinating all the work and getting all the contracts in place. The bond committee that did all that work, and the donors to the bond committee, the facilities committee that did all the work and planning on what we should replace and what we needed to do. North Marion staff, the DLR group, Wenahawk group, the primary construction contractors were always Todd and Partech. Marion County, of course, for all the permitting and help with the designs, and the state of Oregon for all the grant money and all the work that they had done. And I think that's it. Is that the final slide? Yep, okay. All right, so that is from our Oversight Committee. That's our final report and summary to show. And basically the summary of all this is that the bond money was spent according to the voters' instruction, the voters' guide, and what was presented to the public for the vote, and it stayed within budget and accomplished its mission. Thank you. Julie, anything you want to follow up on?
Yeah, just real quick. So I was involved in the bond 20 years ago, and I've said this 100 times at Oversight meeting, but just for the public, this was a very transparent process and was so much easier to follow and smoother. And Karen was incredible as a project manager, keeping the track of the dollars and knowing when something wasn't quite right, and bargaining and telling billers, this is your issue. And I mean, he saved us however much he was paid. He was worth every dollar. He was incredible. And every dollar that in his budget matched with Linda. So it was a great process. And we worked with him on this presentation and tried to make sure we had got all the pieces put together. And this presentation was also approved by the Oversight Committee, so they had their input. So, but anyway, it was a great project, and it's so exciting to see, because when we started, I thought for sure we'd never be able to do everything that was listed, the way the economy was and the costs of everything. But it's pretty exciting to see what's happening. And that the video that's on YouTube, I don't know how long it's been up, but my kid came across it the other day, and he was just blown away. So the kids, the ones that have already graduated, they're pretty excited and proud about it too. So pretty cool project.
I think we should, Glenn, we should open the floor if anybody has any comments or questions.
Yeah, is there questions? Seeing as this is their final report.
I would just like to add my thanks to everybody who has served on the Oversight Committee. I know we have a resolution coming up, but just my personal thanks. It's, I think it's just been a great process and we have a lot to be proud of. And there are many people, staff and other people you've cited that just like to thank
Yeah.
for a great outcome. And the video is really good. Oh, I did have a question. Is this report going to be linked on our website? It would be nice to have it out there for public referral.
I'm certainly in the public domain because it's here, because
I
we're
will.
presenting it here in the public, so we can link it.
I will also put it on the bond page. I wanted you guys to present it first, but I would put it in with our bond information so that it's kind of connected that way.
And put it up in the top, so that's the first thing up there is the conclusion of, this is the summary of everything.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Hand up, Glenn.
Oh, go ahead, Ginger.
I just want to give a quick shout out to some of the staff members who played a critical role in everything coming together. Deanne Janess did a fantastic job of pulling the high school pieces together. And she was assisted in that work. Someone who was here, I would almost say virtually every day of the project, was Linda Murray. So I can't celebrate their contributions enough. Another is Greg Patton, who kept checking to make sure that things were as best as they could be, and kept pushing the envelope for us. And it's just been wonderful work. I'd say with the three of them, we're in very good hands between them and Kieran. It's just been phenomenal work. I hear horror stories all the time of how things went wrong, and we didn't have any of that. And we're very, very blessed. And it's because we dealt with everything as it came. And yeah, Husky spirit, make it work, figure out how to make it work. And they just did a fantastic job. So thank you, Deanne, Linda, and Greg.
I second that. Thank you.
Yeah, so Julie, just directed to you on behalf of the board. I know you remember this board for a long, long time, but I did want to thank you and your board's work. You obviously come very well recommended because of all the work you've done here on this, on this board over the years. But having you head up the Oversight Committee has really been a blessing. I appreciate your work. I appreciate everything you did. There's obviously lots of people to thank in bringing this, this project to completion. But I would, on behalf of the board, I would like to thank the work that you guys did in that Oversight Committee and really bringing this project. I don't know, if you haven't driven by the school, it looks sharp. They're not completely done with every last detail, but our campus looks sharp. It looks great. It looks modern. And that is a testament to a whole bunch of people who really, really pitched in and did the work. But I please pass on our thanks, Julie, to your group that did that work and to you for helping out and for taking that on too. So
Well, I'm proud of the community for, for voting for us and being supportive. We had tried a couple times to pass in bonds in the past, but we saved up for the big one, and this was a really great project. And oh shoot, what was the other thing I was going to say? What was I going to say? I guess it wasn't that exciting. So anyway, I know what I was going to say. Part of the bond was that we were going to have the Oversight Committee. So I think it's cool that we followed through and we did watch the numbers and make sure. And like I said before, it's just so awesome that we were able to do so many things, even more than I think we thought we would get done. So
yeah,
I can't wait till we can have a big open house and we can all celebrate.
I'd like to
Do.
add to that, so you know what's coming up. I propose that late in the month of July, perhaps in August, depending on how the COVID thing goes, I'd like to start bringing back alumni first, starting with everyone that started the class of 48 to the class of 60, have them come as a group, and then 61 to 80, and then 81 to 2000, and then people after 2000. So we'll have small group tours and give them an opportunity to share in the celebration, and also to talk about what comes next, because we didn't hit everything on that bond list that the community wanted. So there's a future that we need to plan for too.
It'd be nice to take the opportunity, if we have the alumni here, to get their contact information. So we keep talking about creating, an alumni association of some sort. So we got to remember that part too, if you do that.
Absolutely. All right, moving along to item C. Bill, you have a resolution you want to present?
Yeah, so basically we started with the Oversight Committee with a resolution to create the Oversight Committee and charge it with its functions. The Oversight Committee delivered the final report and closed down and basically feel that, so we have to end with a resolution. So I propose a resolution to the board for the North Marion Bond Oversight Committee, and skipping the whereases, I'll just read it. Therefore, be it resolved on this 8th. Oh, okay, so we have to change the date to, what is today anyways? I don't even know. The 12th day of April. So we'll change the date to the 12th day of April by the Board of North Marion School District, that the school board wishes to thank all members of the North Marion Bond Oversight Committee for their work in reviewing the bond and grant spending done by the district with respect to the 2017 bond approved by the voters. The board recognizes the substantial completion of work regarding the bond construction, approves the committee to conclude its services to the district. The district is committed to continued support of capital improvements to deliver the best education outcome for our students. And again, we'll change the date on the adoption to the 12th day of April. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 03152021 for the bond oversight, completion of the bond oversight committee with the amended date changes.
This is Heidi. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Ricardo?
Thank you all. Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Jason? Jason?
I don't see him.
Bill?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Chair votes for, motion carries. That resolution carries. Moving on to our next item. We have Sherry Stroud with the approval of social studies instructional material.
Good evening, everyone. Before I get started on this, I just would like to sit back and celebrate this bond. Coming to a community presentation for the bond was the first event I ever attended at North Marion. I hadn't even applied for the job yet. I just wanted to know what this was all about. And I sat down at a round table, and a very nice man came up and joined me, talking all about it. He seemed really knowledgeable. And that was Bill. That was the first time I met Bill. And so it seems like it was just yesterday, but it's been 5 years. So what a celebration, and thank you to the community for voting for it. Social studies adoption. We are really excited as our social studies adoption committee to be here tonight. This is really the culmination of almost 3 years of work. And so tonight, those who will be presenting with me include Chelsea Landry, who is a middle school teacher, instructional coach, and instructional leader. Cheryl Dyer, who is our teaching and learning coordinator for K-12, who will be presenting as well. And then we have input from our teachers on the committee at the secondary level. So that includes, I think Pat Odell may or may not be here. I know he was coaching until 6, and Ann DeShane from the high school, and Chelsea Landry and Tim Treen, who I think is still here on the meeting from the middle school.
Pat Odell is on the call.
Okay, good. Pat made it. So you can see the other committee members. This was hours and hours of dedication. And so I just would like to thank up front all the teachers who were implementing distance learning, LIPI, and now hybrid, and also contributing their time and effort to this venture as well. And then a special thank you, if you could just hold on one second and go back, to Heidi Torian. It was great to have a board member joining us in this. And her input was valuable. And Heidi, I'd love for invite you right now to provide any input that you would like as we go through these slides.
Oh, I'll just say how much I appreciated being included. I just certainly did not put in the time that everybody else put in, but I was very impressed with the well thought out and developed process to evaluate the social study platforms and that they looked at, and the really the work that went into it, and how the rubric that you developed, I'm sure you'll get into this, but the rubric itself always evaluated, had an equity lens as part of it. It looked at reaching every student, and the teachers really seemed focused on how they can elevate every student, no matter where they are in their learning, and reaching them. And I just appreciated this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. This is just a quick overview of the process. We had our ultimate goal was to adopt a social studies curriculum that reflects our district demographics and what we know our students need. The work actually began 2 years ago, and then we reconvened in the fall of 2020 to complete the process. We had a little bit of a stall in there due to budget shortfall, but the teachers never lost their excitement for the work, so it was easy to pick up where we had left off. And the outcome that we developed at the very onset of the process was to make sure that we had a comprehensive process as we work through this. Funds are hard to come by, and we wanted to ensure that there was lots of voice, teacher voice, student voice, community voice, parent voice, so that we could adopt the best materials and that they would be materials teachers were excited to use and would benefit student learning outcomes.
So a little bit more about the process. As you can see here, the state standards really drive the work that we do. For social studies, new state standards were adopted in 2018. So we're working with fairly new standards. And then as a district, we have curriculum maps and projection maps, and that's really ensuring that we are teaching what we need to teach when we need to teach it. And those are the teachers' work, and they create those maps based on the standards. And then we also look at board policy and state guidelines around curriculum adoption. So this isn't a linear process. These are all the things that went into our process as we started this.
Yeah. And an overview just of the timeline. First of all, if we go back, 1992 was our last social studies adoption. Thank you, Cheryl, for finding that fantastic picture of Mr. Pat Odell in the 1992 yearbook. Fast forward to winter of 2018. There was a preview of state-approved social studies curricular resources through caravan presentations. And the district, we had representatives from the intermediate school, from the primary school, middle school, and high school went to the caravans. The caravans are at the WESD, and that's where vendors present the materials for preview. The representatives that went to the caravan came back to our teams. The adoption committees began to meet, and the representatives, we shared the information with our colleagues on our team. We started to have the conversation just about what curriculums we thought would work best for our schools. At that point, we started to set up the times for the vendors to present to our schools and to start piloting the curriculum. But like Sherry said, due to a budget shortfall at the time, we were asked to put this process on hold. And now this exciting part, in fall 2020, we started the process back up again. We created a K-12 adoption committee. We reviewed the process of where we had come from and what the process was for the year. We created the evaluation, the equity lens rubric that Heidi already referenced and we'll get into a little bit later. We developed a timeline for the vendor presentations, and starting in December, secondary, the middle school and high school, we both piloted 2 different curriculums from 2 different vendors. So we had a presentation of the information and a training, and then we piloted the curriculum with our students. And then the next curriculum, they gave us a training, our teachers got trained on it, and then they piloted that curriculum. And then it was about a process of 4 weeks after the 2 after we piloted the 2 curriculums that we finalized the adoption recommendations for board approval. That's where we are now.
So this might be a good time to say that in the initial meeting in the fall, we did review our board policy on instructional materials adoption, and we did follow that policy. But I'd note that that policy was last reviewed in 1998. And so I found some of the materials that are embedded in the administrative role to be fairly outdated, didn't mention equity at all. So I've put a bug in Heidi's ear because she was on the committee that it may be time to take a look at that policy. And so we wanted a more contemporary lens with which to evaluate these materials. And so this team, we created our own rubric that was based on the equity tool from the state. And so the rubric front and center focused on the supports that are needed for our English language learners. Student engagement, making sure that there were plenty of opportunities for students to be engaged in relevant and meaningful and contemporary learning. Accessibility, can all students access the materials, both in print and digitally? Differentiation. This year, more than ever before, we've had to focus our teaching on differentiation using the Universal Design for Learning fundamentals so that students can see themselves in the way that they're learning and in how they represent what they have learned. And then, of course, alignment to state standards. The state, adopts standards which filter down to the districts, and we teach to those standards, prioritizing what we consider to be the most fundamental and important. In order to be on the state approved list, though, vendors only have to meet about 51% of the state standards. So inherent, we know that we will have to find some other support resources for the things that we teach. And then assessment. There's a large shift away from summative assessments and more focused on formative assessments that tell students, first of all, what the learning targets are, what success criteria looks like, and informs them of where they are on the progression to learning towards those state standards. So formative assessment was an important piece for us because that is where and how students learn.
So as we piloted the materials, Teachers had a copy of the rubric that Sherry was just laying out for you for each of the vendors at the different levels. After we piloted both of them and after teachers had time to go in and fill out the rubrics, we had 2 to 3 meetings with the adoption committee and other stakeholder members. Parents were invited, teachers. Heidi came and joined us. And then we also had student impact or student input from surveys. And ultimately, this was a very thoughtful, methodical, intensive process. It was not a rash decision. It was very, very well thought out from all of our teachers and members. Making a final recommendation took altogether about 4 weeks. And we really appreciate the time and effort of everybody that was involved for choosing the best curriculum for our students, just because it was a very methodical process. We're very happy that Heidi joined us. And I don't know, Heidi, if you want to say anything more about the process or we can just move on.
No, I just appreciated how well you guys approached this. And I think that it was very fair and you ended up with a great decision.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. On to our committee recommendations. So for elementary school, as we mentioned, the state has some already gone through curriculum, and for elementary, there was only one state approved curriculum to look at. And so all the grade levels took a look at those, K through 5, and provided feedback to the team. And so there were some concerns about the appropriateness for the lower grades for kindergarten and first grades. There were some alignment concerns with the state standards and assessment concerns as well. So based on some of the concerns and the reviews from the team, we sought more guidance to kind of see what's going on in other districts. How are other people kind of addressing this, or whether people have the same kind of review as we did. And other districts did submit or submitted from other materials that weren't on the list. So Newsella are some of the things that they are using instead of the state approved. And really the state leaves that up to the districts to decide how they're going to proceed. So really, as the elementary team, we really felt that we needed more time to review other materials. So we can review materials that are not on that state approved list, but we have to go through an additional process. And in order to go through that additional process, the team really felt like they needed more time. So at this time, elementary school does not have a curriculum that they are bringing forward for approval tonight.
And I just want to speak to that just a little bit. When we're talking about the appropriateness at K-5, the teacher feedback there was, it's not the best, but we could make it work if this is what the district is going to adopt. And so hearing that theme throughout each grade level causes pause. I don't want our teachers to put up with an adoption of materials that isn't what they truly want. And so we do have some other vendors that we're going to approach now and just take a little bit more time so that they can do the same comprehensive process of comparing and evaluating different materials to select what they feel is the best.
At the middle school, we are really, really excited about National Geographic was the one that our team voted for. Like Sherry was saying at the very beginning with the rubric, one of the things that really struck our team was the embedded differentiation at the beginning of every single lesson. There is incredible scaffolding for all of our students, with our ELD students, and then our students that are below grade level, our special education students, our TAG and our pre-AP students. The readings, if you look at the National Geographic textbooks, they are incredibly engaging, just visually, and that's incredibly important. That's very important for our ELD and our SPED students, and also just really making history come alive to our middle school students. The readings are leveled, so they're modified for the different reading levels. They have digital and print resources. They have Spanish textbooks, Spanish notebooks, resources, and across the board, students preferred National Geographic in 6th, 7th, 8th.
I think Chelsea froze.
Oh no, can you, oh no. Can you hear me now?
Right at students preferred. And then we.
Okay, so can you hear me? But okay, you can hear me now. I'm so sorry. So students preferred National Geographic across the board. One of the things that really stuck out to us as a middle school team, starting from the caravan when we looked at National Geographic, was that National Geographic really seems to know what middle schoolers need for social studies. They had lots of opportunities. There's every single lesson, there's a get up, move on your feet, collaborative strategies, lots of discourse opportunities. So the readings are at a length that is going to capture students' interest. So for all of those reasons, that kind of stood out to us as the curriculum. Tim, do you want to add anything else from a teacher's perspective?
Ultimately, I just want to say that we had two very strong options, and National Geographic outperformed the alternative in just about every domain of our rubric. It is entirely accessible. That was one of the major factors that convinced me, is its accessibility. In particular, just about every student could pick up the digital version of the textbook and understand what they needed to do and how to use it, from the digital note-taking tools right down to what the activities were asking them to do. Additionally, the activities were very robust. They tended to encourage greater DOK engagement. They also had more critical thinking and connection to the real world and present day than we saw in our alternative.
DOK meaning depth of knowledge, going deeper rather than skimming the surface. We educators, we use all of those acronyms.
Thank you, Tim.
We can head to the high school. So for the high school, McGraw-Hill is what we're bringing tonight. And a few things about the curriculum. Accessibility, one of the big things about this is that there's multiple Lexile levels. So meaning that it doesn't just go down one grade level as far as text, it can go down multiple grade levels. So if you have a student who needs to have the text simplified but not change the content, it has multiple levels for that. And that was really important for access. There were a lot of visuals along with it as well, text to speech, graphic organizers embedded into the material, and then Spanish options as well. As far as engagement, there were a lot of interactive activities. And then one thing unique to McGraw-Hill is this thing, Sync Blast. And so these are 10-minute mini lessons that there's a whole library of these assignments and lessons that are really relevant to current topics. And they provide opportunity for students to have discourse. So talking with each other, talking about the current event, interacting with each other about relevant content. And so that was really important for our teams. Strong alignment with the state standards, we've woven that into everything. And then opportunities for those formative assessments, as Sherry was mentioning earlier. And rubrics that are friendly. So students see the rubric, they know what's expected throughout the lessons as well. And then I'm going to invite Anne and Pat to share anything you got your hands on the material and used them and looked through them. So do you have anything else to share from the teacher perspective as well?
Actually, I do. First of all, I want to say that the whole rubric thing that we went through, the whole process was amazing. It stripped away just everything and came down to straight up what's going to work for us and what's not. And I think that McGraw-Hill came out ahead way ahead than the other one, which I don't even remember the name of it. I wanted to mention that it's because I'm representing ELD or ELL or ESL or whatever you want to call it, but not just that, but the students that might perhaps have a little bit more issue, perhaps special ed or students who are just behind. The simplified text is going to be huge. That's going to allow those students to gain access to the knowledge in something that they can comprehend. It's comprehensible input. It's language learning and learning in general, 101. It's very important for all of our students. The connection to now is very huge because kids are like, oh, why do we have to learn this? This was 100 years ago. What's the point? Well, actually, we can compare different things in history that happened. How did we respond? How are we responding now? We're having a pandemic now. Wow. Was there a pandemic before? Yes, there was. So having a connection to that kind of thing with the Sync Blast is going to be huge to allow for students to be able to connect to what happened before to what's happening now. Also, with the Sync Blast and all of the stuff in there, allowing for students to have active engagement, not only with the information that they're receiving from the text, but with each other, is going to allow for not only for deeper learning, but it's going to increase their reading, their writing, their listening, and their speaking skills. And no, I'm not just referring to the ELL students. Having active discourse is going to allow for all students to be able to grow academically as well as personally. I think that our choice was great and the process we went through was phenomenal.
Thank you, Anne.
Pat, do you want to add anything? I just briefly want to speak to Learn Smart. Learn Smart is an individualized and personal tutorial for students. Through Learn Smart, students will be able to get reading support and a personalized tutorial for the concepts that they may be struggling with. And so that comes with the subscription.
Can I add one more thing? Sorry. As my cat decides he wants to be part of this meeting. I wanted to mention about, in case there's some confusion about the English language learners and having Spanish texts. Sometimes when we get students that are brand new to the country, it takes a long time to learn the language, and we really want them to learn in school to be able to have access to credits so they can graduate. So having the text in Spanish as an option for them to work with is a huge deal. It will help them increase their language in English, as well as their knowledge in either in Spanish or in English, as their knowledge of the subject. And so I just wanted to say that that was a real important thing to be able to have that text. It's a huge deal.
Okay. It was recommended that we keep this very short and succinct so we can just move on. So we come down to this is just a chart of what the middle and high school curriculum will cost. And if you scroll up just a tiny bit, you can see the bottom line. I have the materials broken out. There you go. At the middle school grade level and by course at the high school. So very close in costs for middle and high school. In addition to purchasing the materials, in order for them to be implemented well in the classroom, we know two things must happen. There must be additional time set aside for professional development, both from the vendor to acclimate teachers to the materials, and then, pardon me, time for teachers to take the new resources and update now a different kind of curriculum map, their unit map, which is all of the details about how a unit will unfold as a teacher is teaching and as students are learning. So it's got the instructional resources, the strategies, the assessments, all lined out for that unit of instruction. And so what you see in the box under additional costs, are the costs of 40 hours of professional development time for each of the 11 middle and high school teachers. And total cost for that is just over $21,000. One thing I don't want to see happen is an investment of time and financial resources for materials to sit on a shelf, or, you know, for there to be a reason not to use them. And I know both the middle and high school teachers are very, very excited to use these materials, and we want to support them in that endeavor to be ready. So next steps. Once the board approves our recommendation, we would get busy with calendaring dates for the vendor trainings for both National Geographic and McGraw-Hill, and finding time for the planning time for the teachers so that they can be ready to go with instruction on the first day of school in the fall. And then very, very excited to say that instruction with the new materials would happen in the fall of 2021, just 2 years behind schedule with what the state recommends. So we really would like to thank the district for supporting us with the financial resources to purchase updated materials. 1992 is very long time ago. And so new materials will help us do a better job. There's not only new state standards, but also new legislation that we need to provide resources for in order to support students in those mandatory areas of instruction now. So thank you again I want to publicly thank the committee once again, and the district for supporting this work this fall.
There are a few hands raised, Gwen.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Actually, Ginger, your hand is still raised, but I think that's been up since
I'll bring
before.
mine down. Yes, no, mine should be down.
Go ahead, Christy.
Bill was first. Bill, do you want to go? Okay. I had a couple questions. I noticed on the middle school, you referenced that there were options for catching kids up, but also tag or advanced maybe readers or whatever that needed to be, tag and pre-AP. What about for the high school curriculum? I didn't see anything or mentioned about tag or pre-AP learning there.
Does a teacher want to take that, or you want me to take that? Those opportunities are there with the differentiation that is available through both the Learn Smart and just through the different application approaches through the curriculum.
Will you explain differentiation for the new board members, please?
Yes, differentiation really means offering more than one size fits all, both in the way that you instruct, the strategies that you use, knowing that there are multiple modalities of learning, and also in the way students can represent what they've learned. It really is based on personalizing learning for a student. And actually we have Chelsea here, who has been our trainer for Universal Design for Learning, which we were focused on doing before the state said we really needed to do it for distance learning. But it provides not only access based on a student's individual interests, needs, and abilities, but it provides choice for a student and how they represent what they've learned and how they express, for lack of a better word, how they are learning the material. You want to add anything else there, Chelsea?
No, I think you did an excellent job of explaining that. I'm very impressed with. I haven't seen the high school, but I'm sure that it's. I know that it's there. The differentiation that exists that helps us as teachers, and also helps with UDL and gives students choices, which really helps with their engagement.
When we talk about disengagement, right? When we talk about differentiation, it's not just going down, but it's also moving up. So depending on the student and what their student would like, or that we know that they can handle, moving up into the tag land, or just allowing the student to maybe stretch themselves a little bit further, that's also differentiation. And McGraw-Hill definitely had activities designed for tag students, and they're going to cover all of the students very, very well. I was impressed.
Great. Thank you for explaining that. And then I just have one other question. You spent a lot of time, it looks like, on equity and making sure that the tools were there within the curriculum to be able to give the students the tools they need to engage. Can you talk a little bit too about how you evaluated the content of the programs so that we're having our diverse, when you're looking at like history or something, that we're representing the diversity within the actual content of the courses too, and not just the tools with which the program gives you. Does that kind of make sense?
I think it does, Christy, and the best way I can explain that is really the content standards address and reflect the content that I think you're describing. We didn't bring it into this presentation, but there is, in the social studies world, the concept of C3 framework, which provides 10 dimensions to bring social studies relevant with regard to college career and civic engagement. And so I can speak more closely to the McGraw-Hill because that's where the C3 framework seems to speak the loudest, and they use the C3 framework when they were developing their materials. So it's C3 approved, and I know National Geographic is as well. So the content is really driven by the standards, but I think when you look at the visuals in the materials, you also see the diversity that would represent our community visualized there. Do teachers want to add anything to that?
But also oh, sorry, go ahead.
I can speak to the middle school curriculum with National Geographic, specifically in 8th grade, since that is what I'm working with right now. The text actually includes multiple perspectives, not just the unified mythological American perspective. It includes the viewpoints of the British, it includes the viewpoints of the colonists, it includes the viewpoints of Native Americans and indigenous people. There are entire sections and chapters dedicated to the perspectives of people who oftentimes are spoken of history happening to instead of being involved in it. And National Geographic does a pretty good job of giving them a voice and making them into actors instead of just props.
Yeah, I would agree as far as McGraw-Hill is concerned. I also wanted to say that our standards really drive what we teach and how we're going to go about teaching it. And the content in these books are awesome, but it's also going to be about what we do with the content. So even if we all have the same content, how we're going to approach it, and that's going to be based on what we do with the standards. I really think that the books really do cover everything that we need.
Thank you. I really appreciate your presentation. Thanks for your work.
Bill's hand is up.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hi. So I have two questions. They're completely different from each other. The first one is kind of a different version of Christy's last question, but I want to know. So question number one is, how did the process, the rubric, and the selection take into account that in the last two legislations, the Native American bill and the genocide bill and the technical assistance that's coming from ODE, and keeping that content into this program of addressing those kind of things? How did that process work, and knowing that those are coming in the very, very near future? And then the second question I had was on the cost thing. It appears to me that the cost slide shows fixed cost to step into the program, but doesn't show the annual cost of keeping the program up and the access and all that kind of stuff. So what is the annual cost of keeping it up? So the two completely different questions, and I'll just throw them both out there in any order.
Well, since the slide is up, I'm going to start with the second one, because the totals that you see there include the digital access for the remainder of this adoption cycle for both middle school
Which
and
is
high
how
schools.
long? How long is that?
Okay, well, the next cycle is coming up in 5 years. So we did it out for 5
this includes,
years. Mhm.
okay. So
5
this
years
includes
of-
5 years access to the online and all the other stuff
Yep.
that's in there.
Actually,
Okay,
at the
thank you.
middle school, they didn't do a 5-year digital license, so it includes 7 years because it was about the same cost, but yes. And then the
So that's
first
question
question.
number 2. Thank you.
Yes, and then the first question with regard to the new legislature. I just want to say that I am really, really pleased with our new social studies curriculum specialist at ODE, because that department is putting out valuable resources. So in creating the rubric, we didn't take any particular standard into account. We were looking at the process in its entirety with an equity lens for the rubric creation. But with regard to the 3 legislations, we are already teaching to the Senate Bill 13. It's already time that we have to be teaching to that. And we initially piloted the state materials instructional lessons that they created for that. And our social studies teachers are already teaching to those requirements. That's the tribal history, shared history. Same with Holocaust and other genocides. So the state outlined the steps that we need to take to be ready to implement at the time the state says that we have to be implementing. And so each, I think it's each month or maybe every other month, the state puts out additional resources, knowing that none of the vendors had this in mind when they prepared materials for the 2018 adoption. So the materials that are coming forth from the state are in support of those other legislations that we must be teaching to. So the second one is Holocaust and other genocide. And then right now we're in the planning year for the third one, which is the ethnic studies. And that legislation will get approved, I think, September 2021. So we'll be in a planning year, the fall of 2021 through 2022 school year, for full implementation of that in the fall of 2022. So
the incorporation of the materials you're already teaching to kind of match into the selections that you have here, that's kind of what I'm asking. So they kind of fall into place, or are they kind of, you have to do a patch onto it?
Well, at this point, it's been a patch for us because we didn't have the materials, but the materials that we're getting, the printed text materials, are the 2018 version. So the online digital materials will reflect 2020. And they reflect the national 2020 standards. And so we will still have to do our own work through the use of the state supports and resources to make sure we're following the state legislation in each of those 3 areas.
And if I can just add just a little bit, the curriculums that we're putting up for approval, they have resources for those bills that they've already shared with us when we've asked for them. They have things that they have done since 2018 to address those. And so we have access to those as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
So if there are no other questions, we gratefully request that the social studies adoption for middle and high school be approved by the board this evening.
Glenn, can I make a motion?
Sure, go ahead.
If there's no further questions, sorry. I'd like to propose that the North Marion School District support the adoption of a National Geographic curriculum for middle school and McGraw-Hill for the high school as presented.
This is Crystal, and I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. This is for adoption of the material that was just presented. Ricardo?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Jason? Bill?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Chair votes for. And motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to reach out and tell you thank you for all of your work on it, and for bringing everybody together and collaborating this process and putting forward some really exceptional material.
Well, you know, this is a great team. Thank you to the committee.
Thanks, Sherry, and thanks Heidi for acting as our representative on their committee. I really appreciate you engaging and providing insight from the board's perspective. So,
Well, and let me plant a seed now. We're going to start all over again with an ELA adoption in the fall.
Perfect.
We'd love to have board representation then as well.
All righty. Thanks, Sherry. Much appreciated. All right, moving along to our next item, which is non-resident transfer in and out. Ginger, do you have some background information you want to provide on this before we sort of move forward on an action item?
Yes. This is an annual task that the board does, is to review recommendations from the superintendent on the transfers in and out. Historically, over time, there's been an open enrollment policy, which is now sunsetted, no longer exists. But there was a window of time that you had to establish where you would announce how many openings you had in your school district and how much flow could go in and out. And it needed to be done in a timely manner so that the business manager could effectively anticipate what the enrollment would be and be able to develop a budget based on that. Since the open enrollment window is closed, now we just report on places where we know we have opportunities for more students to come in. And some districts set caps for numbers of students out. And it's been our practice the last couple of years to allow, not for non-emergency reasons. How do I say this? We allow families to request to attend another school district. There are exceptions in the law that if a specific request meets an emergency need or the child's safety or security is an issue and they are requesting out or requesting in, all superintendents agree that we automatically do that. So anytime there's a strong student need for a change of school district, everyone's on board to make that happen. Could be homelessness, could be an abuse situation, could be domestic trauma that happened and the student needs a fresh start. There are lots of reasons why students transfer in and out. On top of that, though, we could allow students out. And we do on a case-by-case basis, but we don't set a number. Some districts set a number, we don't set a number. We would like to review all requests out to see what the request is about and to see if that's really in the best interest of the kid and the school district, and also if there's the other school district is actually taking students, because a lot of school districts are closed and not accepting new students. There's always some flow. That's the nature. There's no school district that has a one size fits all everything that meets everyone's needs. So there's always opportunities to change. We consult with the principals on how much room that they have in each class. They give us a number for how many students are allowed in. And then we take those recommendations and move them to the board. So that's the recommendations that are in front of at this time. We currently know that over the last, Linda can give the number of years, we know that last year's enrollment to this year's enrollments were down about 100 students. That's a significant budget impact for next year. So just letting people say, hey, we want to just go to another school district instead is something that is a very costly decision. And it's best to look at the circumstances and make a decision before you decide to open your doors out and let people go. So we're very cautious about that. But again, I want to be clear, on a case by case basis, we review them in case it definitely is the interest of the family and the child to be able to make that move. And then we let that happen for our paperwork side. So the recommendation is before you of what the principals and the district has come up with as a good plan for next year. And we need approval.
Go ahead, Christy. I see you have your hand raised.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions today. Can you just be really clear with me about the last two sentences there? Are you saying that your recommendation is that the superintendent would be making those decisions case by case, or would you would be making a recommendation to the board and then the board would be making the decision?
I make the recommendation to the board that we don't set a number for that, and that we just review everything on a case by case basis, which we are required to do by law anyway. So we would just be following Oregon laws and rules for the transfer out process.
But clarify your pronouns there.
But each individual student or case would come before the board at some point, or would it be?
No, unless there's an appeal process. And then through the appeals process, a parent could appeal to the board. If I decide one way and they want to appeal the decision, then it would come to the board.
Okay. That clarifies it. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? I would entertain
I'll make a motion that the board. Whoops, sorry.
No, go for it, Bill.
And I'll make a motion. We adopt the policies as recommended by admin staff here for transfers in and out for the following school year, 2021-2022.
I'll second that, Heidi.
A motion and a second. Is there more discussion? Or more questions?
This is just how we have been doing it, right?
Yeah.
You want to speak to that, Ginger? This has been our operating procedure in the past.
Yeah, and last year was exactly the same.
Okay. Does that clarify, Crystal?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. Any more questions? Otherwise, we'll move to a vote. Hearing none. Ricardo?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Jason? Bill?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Chair votes for. Motion carries. All right, moving on to Item number 6, Superintendent District Operations. We have some presentations by our middle school and high school administrators. I don't know, are you introducing them, Ginger? Or?
I would like to introduce how we got here. Why are we here today? This is a multi-year project. We've been tracking the number of students who are not making the grade, if you will, based on how we do things at this particular time. And looking at that as an indicator of engagement and reflection of ways in which we can develop more care and connection, and making sure that parent engagement, student engagement, and teachers are connected. So this is year 2 of this work. And of course, COVID interrupted last year as well. So it's been very challenging because we started off with a year in which we had good solid data and time for the formative assessments and the tests to allow us to measure the change over time. And that hasn't been able to happen in the last year and a half. So it's a challenge. I appreciate very much Dan, Tammy, and David for preparing the information that we have, and I'll let them present that to you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not sure, I saw both up. Are we starting with middle school or high school?
I think we should start with middle school. Can you click on that tab, please? So the middle school shows up.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me.
Are you not seeing what you want? It was suggested that I use the Google Sheet and not the PDF.
Yeah, what we're seeing, Linda, is the high school data. If you could switch to the middle school data.
I have the middle school on mine, so let me try again.
Thank you.
And while she's doing that, I want to make another point that when we do a very fine disaggregation and drill down into the data a little bit, at a certain point in time, there's a cutoff of the numbers that you can report. At a certain point in time, the numbers are so low that it would be too easy to identify a student or a group of probable students. So anytime we hit that number, which is 5 or less, it's replaced by an asterisk. So on the public report, this is what we have here. Thank you.
And I thank Christy for helping us with that, because that's important. Thank you for allowing us time to present our Try 1 and Try 2 grade data. As we all know, this has been a year like no other. We've seen huge national and state trends that are showing massive amounts of Fs, and most importantly to me, low engagement of students. I think what we're going to see with the middle school data is that it's reflective of what's happening nationally. That doesn't mean it's okay. I am not proud of this data, as I am sure I'm speaking for the rest of the principals. It's concerning, but I think that at the end of this presentation, we can talk about the efforts that we have tried to accomplish to mitigate the Fs. And in some cases, we've made some progress in that realm. So the way we're going to present this data is we decided to print this, Dave and I will take turns, but we decided to print this data vertically. Because if you look across the top, the columns all have different headings by demographics. So I'm going to go ahead and start with all students by grade. So this is our entire population of 6th graders. And I'm speaking to trimester 1 data at this time. So if you look at it, you will see in grade 6, 68% of our students had an F, at least one F. In grade 7, it was 47%, and in grade 8, it was 49%. I think that when we look at this data, it's typical data, typical trends 6 through 9 or 6 through 8, because usually the 6th graders aren't acclimated as enough. And so sometimes their F reports might be a little bit higher, but that always evens out as the year goes on. Then if you look now at trimester two, we developed a no grade policy. And we did that based on the Ready School Safe Learner guidance and thinking about care and connection. We had kids all over the place that, you know, were in mental distress, emotional distress, that weren't able to attend. And so we took that road to look at this, and really what no grade represents is that there's just not enough evidence of student work or anything that the student submitted to determine if the student met the goal or made any progress at all on the class or the standard to determine a grade, thus eliciting a no grade. And so you'll see at grade 6, we ended up with 52% F's, 7th 50%, and 8th 47%. Now, I think going down to the bottom is the most revealing. So if we look at grade 6, based on some of the things that we did, and we'll get to that again at the last slide, we went down, we dropped the number of F's, which was encouraging to us. It went from 68% to 52% based on some of our efforts. Grade 7, this is where we have anomalies, and this just means we need to dig into this deeper and figure out why did grade 7 go up. They went up from 3 percentage points. And then in grade 8, they went down as well by 2 percentage points. And now I turn it over to Dave to talk about the Latino population.
Thank you, Tammy. Now that everyone's kind of acclimated to how we're going through this, it'll start to go a little faster, and we'll accelerate through this, and then we'll jump into the subject grade counts next. And I think we're most excited to talk about what Tammy alluded to earlier, which are some of the shifts that we put in place, because the question for us is always, you know, how do we intervene? How do we accelerate? How do we intervene? And so if we look at the category of Latino or Hispanic, and we look at grade 6, we see that 54 students out of 71 in that demographic category, for a total of 73%, had an F, one or more Fs. If we look at 7th grade, we'll see that 44 out of 77 students, or 56%, were in that category. And if we look at 8th grade, we see 49 out of 86 students, or 59%. And then if we jump down to the second portion of this table here, underneath that same heading, you'll see that we dropped from 54 or 73% down to 45. This is for grade 6, or 63%, with 6 students receiving a no grade. For 7th grade, we went from 44 students to 41, for a total of 50, for a drop from 56 to 53%, with 22 students receiving a no grade. And then for 8th grade, you'll see there were 49 students in that first category. We went down to 42, for a drop of 59 to 48%. So when we look at these categories cumulatively in the bottom part of the table, you'll see that we went down in each one of those, and that's a good trend. That being said, there are more no grades there. And just to kind of build a little more background knowledge about that, as we developed that policy, we did really leave it up to the scrutiny of the educator on whether to assign an F or a no grade. And really, when we think about grades, the message that we try to communicate is that grades should be feedback based on growth towards a standard. And if you feel like you have enough evidence of student learning to provide that feedback, and that feedback is that there was failure to move forward on that, then an F is certainly an opportunity to provide that feedback. If you felt like there wasn't enough, a no grade. And so I think one of the things that we did that again underneath that notion of do no harm and really care. If we could let you guys into the behind the curtain, Tammy alluded to it a little bit. I mean, we certainly can't overly generalize and say that every student has suffered in this experience, because there have been many that have actually succeeded and have experienced, a good experience, in a virtual or remote environment. But we have been dealing with a lot of other cases as well, more than we would say historically were normal. And so again, we're trying to be as responsive as we can.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and move to white. And it was interesting because just the last week I went and said hi to the teachers in the lounge, and they engaged me in a discussion about, it seems as after every like major occurrence, so after holiday break, kids dropped off significantly. After spring break, they dropped, but they also said that they dropped off, meaning non-attendance, non-participation, significantly when hybrid started. They noticed last week that a lot of kids weren't attending. So if we look at white, the white population, Caucasian, it says that 60% of our sixth graders received an F, 35% seventh, and 42% in the eighth grade. Trimester 2, we saw a decrease, 39%. So it was down from 60 to 39%, which we were very pleased with. In seventh grade, they went from 43 to 35, which shows quite a decrease as well, or excuse me, an increase, which again, you know, we're seeing that same pattern in seventh grade. Not sure why. And then eighth grade up from 23 or 43% to 40 or 42 to 44%. So Dave, you want to take this back?
Yeah, and you know, I think one of the things that we want the board to know as well, this last week being our first week back with students, it was an incredible experience to see students in the building for the first time in over a year. Between the COVID reality and the bond work that was going on, you know, it was a long year, but it was so good to see them back. And like Tammy alluded to, we were out there talking to staff, we were out there talking to students, and what we're encouraged by is the excitement that we've heard from both of those populations. And so our prediction is that we'll see an improvement in all of this as we regain some sense of normalcy, if you will, in this environment. And I mean, just the positive energy in the building. You know, they're coming in, they're learning new routines, new rituals, and acclimating to the safety guidelines that are here. And so kind of the overall sentiment that we're hearing from our students is it's different, but we like it. And even in some anecdotal opportunities to measure engagement, what we're hearing is, I can pay more attention here. I can actually get my work done. I heard one student say to me last week, she got work done in 5 minutes that she would have taken an entire day to accomplish at home. And so we're highly encouraged by that. So we want to celebrate that point and super excited about it. So. All right, final category here are students in the category of special education. You can see in grade 6, we had 10 out of 26 students for 38%. In grade 7, we had 12 out of 35 for 34%. In grade 8, we had 14 out of 36 for 40%. As we jump down into trimester 2, we see there's essentially no change for 6th grade. And for 7th grade, we see a slight uptick from 34% to 43%. And in 8th grade, we see a slight downturn from 14 to 11. But again, you'll see a few no grades there. So once again, if we look at the cumulative portion of that, you'll see no change for 6th grade, up a little bit in 7th, and down a little bit in the 8th grade. And now we're going to jump to the next tab. Linda, if you don't mind hitting that, please. And this will get us into the subject areas. And I'm going to start us off with humanities here. And you can see this reads a little bit differently. Instead of vertically, we're going to move horizontally now. And so if you look at 6th grade humanities, you can see that 50 out of 122, or 41%, received an F. We can see that it went up to 63 out of 122, or 52%, with 9 no grades. So that was an increase of 11%. For 7th grade, we go from 32 trimester 1 to down to 25 trimester 2. So we took a decrease from 22 down to 17%, a dive of 5%. And then 8th grade, we go for 41 out of 145, or 28%. And we dip down from 41 to 40, and that takes us down to 1%. Our students with disabilities, we had 30 out of 97, or 31% with an F in trimester 1. In trimester 2, we had 28 or 29%, and then 6 no grades. I don't know what the ST is there. We must have had a note that we forgot to get rid of. So down 2%. And then the ELD population or English learners went from 36 up to 38 trimester 2, so a slight uptick. So again, it's good information for us to begin to engage in conversations and ask questions.
Absolutely. And looking at math, which we know is a district priority, in 6th grade, 45% had an F, and then it went down to 18%. So that drop was 33%, which is significant. In 7th grade, 46 went to 43. It was still down by 3%, but then 8th grade happens. And it goes up by 9%. You know, it's an indication that we need to continue deep conversations about grading practices. And we have begun that at the district level. SPED up 10% in math, and ELD was down a huge 21%, which is encouraging.
And then in science, we see in 6th grade from 52 or 43% down to 10 or 8%, so down 35%. And in 7th grade, we see 34 out of 145 or 23% down to 12 or 8% in 3 no grades. So that takes us down 15%. And then in 8th grade, we go down from 46 to 21 for a total of 18% decrease in the quantity of Fs. And again, you can see there were 7 no grades. For special education, we go from 23 down to 10 for a decrease of 14%. And our English language development students go from 35 down to 9 for a decrease of 43%.
Okay, and to round it out, our electives, 6th grade went down between trimesters by 12%, which is encouraging. And then 7th went up by 8%. 8th grade went down by 5%. These two concern me, especially in this category, electives. SPED went up by 11% and ELD went up by 21%. So, you know, you question, is that lack of engagement, or did the work get more difficult for students? Those would be the questions I would ask right off the top.
Linda, do you mind clicking on the final tab there, shifts? So, you know, you go back to last spring and we go into distance learning, and it becomes a survival process as we learn what it means to create packets and send them home. And the big question was, how do we provide feedback on packet work? And then we come into this fall with comprehensive distance learning, and we have a lot of teachers that are learning new systems and trying to say, okay, how does the old fit in with the new? And there was so much learning that happened over that first trimester. So my prediction is that a lot of what we see in terms of the decreases, because there is a little bit of up and down throughout this entire presentation, but what we believe is that there were some really radical shifts that happened, as well as some learning opportunities for people to say, you know, how do we be responsive to student need? And so I'm going to go through the first 4 of the shifts that we implemented from trimester 1 to trimester 2. So again, first of all, underneath that notion of do no harm, we gave that as an option to provide feedback. So that was a little different, and you saw those reflected in the report. Our grade level teams, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, those grade level professional learning communities, they were meeting faithfully, weekly, and they were constructing student lists, and they were monitoring data, and they were outreach or doing outreach to families in unprecedented manners. They would say, okay, you've got your homeroom, here's the kids that need outreach. And so there was more outreach than we've ever seen before. And those grade level teams were especially committed to that. There was an incredible increase of effort to support engagement strategies. We as admin dug in with our instructional leadership team, with our instructional coaches, and asked, what can we do differently around engagement strategies? And when we started to learn about different tools, different online techniques, how do we shorten our run of explanation? How do we increase student agency throughout all this? And we had opportunities to model some of those engagement strategies for folks. We provided specific professional development on that as we strove to increase that engagement. And then both Tammy and I, we have been so purposeful in our walkthroughs. We've been in classrooms intentionally looking for engagement strategies, providing feedback, and really building on people's strengths when we see excellence in that category. And so those were some of the real big shifts that I'm going to talk about, and I'll let Tammy round us out here.
Yeah, and we knew, just to add to a little bit what David said, we knew the importance of clarity. And so we really worked on making sure all of our Canvas pages looked the same for students. And so there was that predictability for them. We activated Lippy, and then we shifted to hybrid, as we all know, and we did them kind of in tandem, quite honestly. When we made that shift, we deliberately, like Dave said, added even more to our instruction and our best practices. For teaching concurrent teaching, that means teaching CDL and hybrid at the same time. But our focus was really to ensure that those teaching methodologies were fair for both groups. We did not want one to feel like it was better because it was in person. We wanted equitable practices for both groups. We started with about 80 Lippy kids, and what's interesting, I took data on them. The attendance each week became worse at Lippy, and the grades really showed no progress in the three weeks that I was keeping really tight data, and lack of engagement just increased. Now hybrid, we're running cohorts of about 38 to 43 students, depending on the guidance. And as Dave said, we're seeing excitement. So I did little interviews with kids and said, hey, what's your favorite thing about being back today? And they were saying things like seeing the teacher for the first time. I had no idea Mr. Young was that tall. And one kid said the food, and most of them said over and over again, school, just being in school. So we do have high hopes and know that we can continue and learn from this process and build upon it. We made a lot of efforts to make sure that we were getting home visits in. Our attendance meetings really focused on, and grade level together, focused on which kids were disengaging. Our staff was phenomenal at emailing us and saying, I'm getting really worried about this child. And we followed through with home visits. It might have been something as simple as a bag of supplies, or a team of an admin, maybe Mitch and a counselor, to talk with them and try to re-engage them. We activated homeroom instead of advisory. We did this purposefully. Last year in advisory, we met one time per week. We knew that was not going to work this year based on everything that the middle school community has been through. So we have homeroom every single day so they can build relationships with that teacher, and it's focused heavily on student need and cell instruction for social emotional well-being. And what's neat is that's really dissipated out into all the classrooms. So it's rare to join a classroom and not see them start with mood meter. How are you feeling today? And they're getting very creative with the way they're doing that as well. They're using different emojis, some cases, and all sorts of things. And then lastly, our communication, we knew that it needed to be deliberate and systematic. And so we communicated in a way that responded to their needs. And so that just involved staff communication, a newsletter that went out to our parents with what we knew they needed. It may have been something as simple as, we noticed by watching the kids in these classes, even virtually, that they were falling asleep. So we did something on getting to bed on time and knowing the importance of that, all with very light heart and responding appropriately to parents. Student communication, we do Loom videos every week for the kids. We get kind of crazy with them. The last thing we wanted was those kids to show up and not know who we were. And so that was very important. And then staff communication and emails and encouragement and, you know, just all sorts of little inspirational things have been ongoing for us. So I think that's it for our part of the presentation.
Any questions?
I'm not sure if you want to do questions now or at the end of the high school, but certainly open to either.
Let's, if they have questions for you, now's a good time.
Okay.
Crystal has a question.
Sure.
I just have a comment that I can see all the work going on from not only a parent perspective, but from a board perspective. And I do really agree with you. I have high hopes for the end of the year, and we're going to see drastic changes. I know that a lot of the students I've talked to from a wide variety have said that it's a lot easier for them to learn in person. And I think that just goes to say, you're right, we need flexibility. And I think if anything has been taught is the different methods each one of us learn. And we've only been teaching to one of those with the online thing. And so some are auditory learners and all that. So I agree. I can see all the detailed work you put in, and I really appreciate the data. And you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Crystal. And I know that we're both excited. You know, I mean, this data is new right now. You know, I mean, second trimester just ended. We just got hybrid off the ground, and so we're collating this data right now, and we're really excited about having the conversations with our staff as well. Because to be honest with you, Tammy and Dave don't move the world. It's the collective efficacy of that school and all those brains together. It's those leadership teams, those coaches, and every one of those educators. And I know that they're going to love to take a look at this and you know, kind of see what else can we do as well. So you know, we look forward to even more increased effort as we finish this year strong.
Right. This staff won't stand for this. They're a strong staff. This is not their will. They will make sure to rise to the occasion. Thank you.
Go ahead, Christy, you had a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. The no grade, students who receive a no grade, they'll repeat that course at some point. What happens there? How does that impact their progression?
In middle school, it really doesn't. In high school, it's a little bit different, and we'll let Deanne speak to that. But in middle school, we will meet those kids where we need to meet them. So, for example, if they received a no grade, meaning they did not submit work or show any sense of progress in 7th grade math this year, it's our job in 8th grade math to make sure we meet them where they need to be in the continuation of learning. And a lot of the research out there really does indicate that it will progress more quickly.
Yeah, and we're never going to give up. We're going to continue to seek after these students. And like Tammy said, you know, that differentiation, that engagement point, wherever they come back and join us, we're going to work towards accelerating their learning from that point on.
Great. Thanks for the clarification. And I just wanted to also echo what Crystal said. You know, these are some really hard numbers to see, and it's probably really hard for you to see those, but I really appreciate your enthusiasm moving forward and your continued positive attitude towards this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm assuming now it's my turn to talk about our high school data. This data is really hard to swallow right now. Doesn't show the hard work, the good work our staff has been doing, and the students that are learning. You know, we have one thing I want to share first, and it's on the last tab, or second to the last tab, is our early grads. You know, we have never had that number of early grads. And that is something that is very proud of. You know, they were able to buckle down and get their stuff done. And 21 of those students graduated early. We still have about 5 to 7 that are almost done with their courses. So they will also be an early grad. they still participate in all our fun stuff that we are able to do in this COVID environment. But that number I'm very proud of it, because these kids did their best to get their credits taken care of and was able to get it done before the end of the school year. So now we'll go back to the 2020 by grades. So first of all, I want to talk about no grades. Early on, after we looked at near the end of first trimester, we were noticing a lot of Fs. And we did some checking with other high schools in our ESD, and we had the conversation with us about using a no grade. And Christy, this kind of goes with what you were saying about the progression. These no grades, they still need to replace the class. If it's an elective, they can pick a different elective if they would like, but the no grade does not affect their GPA. And so that goes under the clause of no harm. And we felt really strong about that as a staff. We felt it was really important that because of the situation we're in and not knowing the situations of all students, why they are not engaged and why they've earned such a low percentage, that we felt a no grade is the best answer for to keep a no harm clause for our students. So first trimester, our ninth graders, we had 61 students with a no grade. And, that's a high number. And these are students that have one or more no grades. Freshmen normally at the first trimester kind of comes in and kind of wide-eyed and not sure what is expected. And so we're hoping, as time goes on, that no grades change. But then our 10th graders, 29 students. So those are the ones that have started to figuring out the importance of their grades. But then our juniors are up to 39, which is 26%. And then our seniors, which is our big concern, of course, is at 37 students at 23%. As we go across the page, for our ninth graders, Latino students was 37 students, which is 44%. And that's a really high number, and it's a big concern for our Latino families. 10th grade, it's a low number, 19 students, which is 31%. 11th graders, 23%. And our 12th graders, there's 20 students, Latino students that are earning a one or more no grade. And then as we work our way across, we have some concerns with our American Indian students as our seniors. And then of course our SPED kids, which is our concern about, especially freshmen as they're coming in and not knowing and not actually having the in-class support that we would normally have if we were not in CDL. Our next is for second trimester. We had 61 students again at ninth grade, some changes of who those students were. And then 37 of our 10th graders, which is 25%, 43 of our juniors, which is 28%. And again, our seniors, which is a big concern, is 44 students with 28%. And as we look across the chart, Latino families and students are our big concern that we need to be able to reach out and give the supports that they need to make those changes so they are understanding the subjects and how to be a student in a CDL world. And then our SPED students is another big concern again. But then as we go down and compare them, our ninth graders, we went up by 2% from first trimester to second trimester. Our 10th graders, we went up from 29 students to 37, which is a 5% increase. Our 11th graders also went up from 26% to 28%. And then our 12th graders went up from 37 to 44%. With our Latino families, it was a small increase, which was happy to see that it was just a real small increase. And the 10th and 11th grade, we stayed the same. With our SPED, we went up, we stayed the same for 9th graders. With our 10th graders, we went up from 7 students to 13. With our 11th graders, it was such a small number. That was nice to see that it wasn't a huge jump. And then our seniors went from 6 to 10 students. What is not reflected on this comparison in our second trimester is our incompletes. We offer our students, the ones that are real close to a passing grade by individual teachers, the option to have an incomplete, and then within the 2-week period after the trimester is over, they have time to work on their assignments to change that incomplete to a letter grade, or it would automatically be changed over to an NG. That data is just now in the process of being transferred over. And so our NGs will probably hopefully go down from our total numbers when we start adding in these incompletes, hopefully for a letter grade. So you can see the numbers. We had 57 9th graders that got an incomplete and has the option to work on those grades, which is a really good number for our 9th graders. So they have an opportunity to earn a letter grade. And so they are not hold to harm, and they can see the supports that our teachers are willing to help. And then again, our seniors, which is 39 students, have an incomplete. Also included in these incompletes is driver's ed, and driver's ed stays as an incomplete until they get all their drives in and have passed the course. And those do not change in the 2-week period. They stay as an incomplete until the course is done. Linda, if you can change over to the next tab, please, as high school subjects. So this one, I have not actually gone through and compared the totals as of this moment because of the NGs. So with English, you can see there's been an increase in the 9th graders, but a decrease in the rest of the grades. And then with strategic language, which is mostly our SPED kids, it was very small numbers that earned an NG. For math, there was a decrease in 9th grade for Algebra 1, and the rest was not noticeable within the data. With science, there was an increase in biology, and remember that with all these courses, there's a and a B of the course, and we just combined them both. So for example, in biology, first trimester, they were all A, biology A. In second trimester, there is biology A and B. And so as I looked at the data, there was probably 4 biology A that got a no grade, and the rest were biology B. So third trimester will show you the numbers of all biology B. I hope that makes sense. With the A and B courses, it gets a little bit more confusing on the second trimester of no grades. Same with social studies, there's A-B courses. So the first trimester, all A's. Second trimester is A's and B's. And the third trimester, when we get the data, will be all B's. Health, numbers were so low, there was only a few kids that took health as a 9th grader. We normally offer health for 10th and 11th graders. So there was a decrease in the NGs from first trimester to the students from second trimester. PE courses is, PE1 is what's offered in 9th grade. And then the rest of the courses is a variety of different PE classes, from weight training to PE2, to volleyball, basketball, tennis, jogging and fitness. So it's a variety of different PE courses. And then we have the electives. And that was just, the 9th graders had more electives second trimester than they did first, because we focused more on the core classes. So you'll see a higher number with NGs in electives for 9th graders because they had more of them. And then our intervention class, I'd like to focus on for that. Those intervention classes was our distance learning intervention, which includes the assurance forms from last spring. We had offered one in math and then one each trimester in English and variety of distance learning classes. So this is a struggling class to get these kids to work on their work from last spring to get those no grades and their no passing into a pass. We also allow time for students to do those assurance forms in advisory. We were finding out that that was getting to be not a good place for the kids to get that work done if they had more than one course that was an assurance form. So this trimester, we offered a class with 2 separate teachers. And so there's about 44 students between the 2 teachers, and we're trying to get these assurance forms to passing. Otherwise, they will end up taking that course again. So that is where we're at. I want to talk about our possible 5th year students. We have from our 5th year students right now, we have seven out of the 9 that are still at risk of not graduating. But we also have 3 of the 7 right here that are working, have shifted over to a GED. And so we're working with those kids to pass their GED. And then right now, which these numbers are discouraging, and we're hoping that we could offer summer school to help these 21 kids graduate by August. And that way we can work on getting those credits so they can get their diploma by August of this year. A lot of the shifts that we did goes along with a lot what the middle school has talked about. We made the shift for the NG, started right at first trimester because we saw the harm that was going to happen with any of the extracurricular our kids wanted to do, along with scholarships in their future. And that's one of our biggest reasons why we stuck with the NGs to help with their GPAs. A lot of care and connection, a lot of phone calls, a lot of one-on-one meetings with students and parents, and just making sure that we reach out. We have advisory every day, and that's where our care and connection mostly is focused on. And I think that pretty much sums it up. We're working hard, and we have a committee working on 9th grade on track and seeing what options we can do, reading our data and finding some activities or interventions that we could put in with these kids that have NGs. And we're looking at really focusing on students that have more than one NG in a trimester, and hoping that we can get them into hybrid, and so we can work with them and get the supports that they need. Is there any questions?
So Deanne, I probably have one. Given that a lot of these kids either have an NG, is this going to echo down the road a couple of years when we come up short with credits? And in the interim between now and then, is there going to be a strategy in order to try and get those credits up to a more normal level for as many kids as possible? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Well, I want to talk about the ninth graders to start with. So for a ninth grader to be on track, they have to earn 6 credits. Well, that is our whole year. And so that's going to be something that we're going to really have to take a look at to maybe possibly offer summer school also for our ninth graders to earn a couple credits or half credits. The other thing is we need to look at our grading practices and how that's impacting, and that's what we're starting to work on as a district. I believe overall the NGs won't affect the overall credit because they would have earned an F. And so what the NG has done is kind of frozen their GPAs with not giving them an F, but they would have to take the classes again. And so we're gonna have to look for credit recovery courses that we can take. We're going to be expanding the Opportunity Center and maybe looking at an alternative setting for some of these students that are really in a deficit. And so we are things that we have been talking about and things that we are looking at implementing to make this deficit not so big in the following years.
Sure. Thanks, Deanne.
Uh-huh.
Could I just add one little piece to that? There's also the credit options. There's lots of ways for students to retrieve credits at the high school level based on credit options that our state has approved. And so that's another area where we can look at some of those options and see what would fit for students.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. I see Crystal's hand is raised. Go ahead, Crystal.
I was just wondering if the no grade counts, how does it count for GPA, or is it just not counted?
It's not counted at all.
Okay.
That's how it saves the no harm. The hold them at harm is that it doesn't affect their GPA. They still have to take the class over again, but it does not affect the GPA.
Okay, so does that complicate things for like valedictorian in the future, or?
Actually, it probably saves it.
Okay. I was just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, that's a very complex process and result, and it looks like you've drilled down and provided us with the information that was requested and pointed out some very important positive trends and things that we're doing in response. And that's a good job that I appreciate, Deanne. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would just like to say from the board, I really do appreciate this data. I know it is difficult to present. It's kind of heart-wrenching on our sides too. I know it's not for lack of work hours, man hours, just begging, trying to push these kids over, over the finish line in every way we can. So please don't take it as a, somberness around these numbers as anything related to your job performance. I know you guys have spent hours and hours and hours making things work as best you can. But I really do appreciate you coming and presenting data that's really, really tough for everybody to see. I'm sure it was really tough for you to aggregate as well too. But I appreciate you bringing that forward and, having some strategies and having the positivity to move forward, especially with these kids who are most at risk. So I really do appreciate that, to Tammy and to Dave and to you, Deanne. So I really do appreciate you coming in and giving us, a snapshot as to where things are. So. Do you have anything more, Ginger, on your side?
Well, I just want to share an announcement that was made today that Andy Kronzer will be leaving our district next year. So he wants to be closer to his kids, and this was really hard on him to make this decision, but it's really kind of an interesting trend that a lot of people are making decisions about their workplace due to the COVID impact. I mean, you realize how valuable your family really is and how little you have with them. And all of a sudden, reshuffling your priorities and focusing on your family rises to the top. So there's a lot of movement, in many school districts with respect to getting closer to your family. We're hearing that with staff members. We're hearing that with families. So anyway, it was made, the announcement was made today, so it didn't make the board report. So I just wanted you to be aware. The receiving school district that hire him will be making an announcement tomorrow. So we're not sharing that information because they were asked not to. We'll hear more about that tomorrow, but we're going to miss him. He's made a wonderful contribution, has been a great leader at the primary school level. And then my last statement would be, as we move forward between now and the end of the year, my immediate focus now is the hiring process. Is I have to put on my HR hat, and that becomes my top priority between now and till I have the staff filled and we've decided, the replacements and the retirements and the different changes that need to be made to fully staff. And part of that work is done contingent on Linda finishing hers. So Linda will be focused on budget development. I and Sherry will be working closely as a team on staffing and making sure that we have the right people on the right seats of the bus so that the district bus moves down the road successfully and makes a lot of progress in the future. So thank you, board, for this meeting today and for listening to the work of the teachers and the leaders in this district who are charged with helping kids as much as they can and planning for next year, which we are very much looking forward to.
Ginger, I had one question is, I'm sure every other district around us across the state is dealing with numbers very similar in terms of kids that are really struggling because of the climate they've been thrown into. They've been taught to learn a certain way for 10, 6, 8, 13 years, and now we expect them to change gears completely, change how they learn. Are the powers that be higher up the food chain open to hearing this data? Will they listen to the struggles that districts are facing? We have real data here in terms of the complications that their mandates are creating for every district. And are they open to some scrutiny, especially going forward into next calendar school year?
Yes.
And I'm assuming you as superintendents as a block probably the best voice to pass that upwards. Is that correct?
Yes. We've shared how we feel about the constantly changing environment and our inability to get the ground underneath our feet solid enough to move forward because they keep moving the ground. That has the impacts on families, it has impacts on staff, it has impacts on students, and it just needs to stop. And The policies around grading need to change, need to reflect the current environment. Looking at the one-size-fits-all education model and funding it that way needs to stop. We need to start taking into account that some families need something different, or there are some students, like Deanne was mentioning, and so was the middle school as well. Some students thrive in an online environment or a hybrid environment, not like our hybrid environment, but at times when they are at school and times when they can say, I need a break from that environment. I need to be at home learning for a little while, in and out, as it works for me and works for my family. System doesn't support that right now. It's something that we do individually, but moving forward, we need to take those needs into account. We have families that need very different things now as a result of this. The economics, the whole issue of now we're in a cycle where childcare is nearly impossible for some people to find, so they can't go to work. And then if we get them back to school, they still can't find childcare for the younger ones. So it doesn't matter that the kids are coming back to school. They still have young kids and they have to stay home. So there's an economic impact. We're seeing, we can predict there's going to be long-term ramifications for these last couple of years. And we're trying to come up with ways in which we can use the resources that we have to provide a different level of service for families in ways in which supports what they need, as well as gives the kids the education that they deserve and that we're charged with making sure that they have. Some of our families that are choosing not to come now are the same families that desperately need the education. And they don't have a choice. They just can't come. They're doing the best they can. So the question that superintendents are asking each other right now is, so what do we do? What's the education model that allows the people that can't afford to come to school to build a bridge so that they're learning and that they can go back to work and kids can find care and can find the support that they need and can attend school? It's a much bigger problem that we're dealing with right now.
Well, I appreciate all of the work and all of the energy that's gone into all of these endeavors. So if there isn't any other business that needs to come before us, I will go ahead and adjourn this regular business meeting.
Hey, girls soccer team. I'm proud of all of our athletes, but especially proud taking a moment to call out our girls soccer team. Finally, they got the championship that they've been working on so hard.
Absolutely. That has been good. Gosh, probably a decade coming, maybe. So, all right. Well, with that, I guess we're adjourned.